So what does the word literal mean to you? Literal. Okay? I get that a lot. It means real life. Sophia. It means it's true. It means it actually happened. So let's talk about this word literal. Sometimes you may say to your parents if you're really hungry, Mom, just cook some dinner. I'm starving. No. You are not literally starving. You're hungry. Okay? There are people in this world that are literally starving and they eat a cup of rice a week. Do you know what I mean? You're not literally starving. Okay? Or another thing we say often is, oh my gosh, I'm freezing. Okay? No, you're not an ice cube at 32 degrees, or I'm burning up. No, you don't have flames coming off of you. You are not literally burning, you're hot. Okay? So do we understand what the word literal means? It means it's actually happening. So think about those exaggerations when we say them, okay? But guess what we are going to literally do today? We're going to literally just solve equations. Okay? So, listen up. Now, if I were to give you like 4x plus 8 equals 12 and ask you to solve it for x, you have a purpose. Your purpose is to figure out what the value of x is, right? Okay, x has to be what? 1, right? Think about it. 4 times 1 is plus 8. Okay? So when you're solving that equation, you have a purpose, and the purpose is to figure out what x is. If I ask you to solve this equation, you're looking at it thinking, okay, first thing you're probably thinking is, what am I solving for? Well, if I give you an equation like that with no numbers, I have to tell you which variable that I want you to solve for. What variable is it already solved for? Z. Z is already alone. So this equation is already solved for Z. Now I want you to solve it for x. And the reason we do this at the very end of all those crazy 4 sections we just did is because you can apply all those properties that you learned in these last weeks to do that. So what would I do if I want x by itself? What's in the way? Y. So what property needs to be done with y to cancel it out? Good. Subtraction. So let's subtract y from both sides. Now, at this point, x is by itself, but you have a little decision to make. And that's what's good about algebra. There's a lot of different ways to solve the same problem. Personally, I just like to write, because we're going to put it on a line, I just put what was there first and then what I did second. Can anybody think of another way to write that? That would be an acceptable answer on a test that I would not mark wrong. Instead of just z minus y. Sophia? Good. Well, you could write z plus negative y, but we don't want to do plus and a minus in the same. How about just negative y plus z? Is that the same? I need you to see that these are interchangeable. Guess what? The z is positive. Hey, it's still positive. I didn't change that. The y is negative. It's still negative. I just changed the order. What a lot of kids who don't have number sense, which is what we just talked about in our slot, they think that they can just switch the y and the z and keep it a minus. And you know that's not true, right? Because that would mean then that you're making the z negative. So know that I will accept either one of these answers, okay? So what did we do? We literally just solved that equation. Let's take x plus y equals z, and let's not solve it for x, let's solve it for y this time. So what's in the way now? X. So I need to do what? Subtract x from both sides. And y is equal to z minus x or negative x plus z. You got it. Okay, let's do another one. Let's take AB equals C. That means nothing to you. It means nothing other than 3 letters or variables on a piece of paper. There's no figuring out what A is. Let's solve it for A. Okay, be careful. This time it's A times B. Not like it was X plus Y up here. So to get rid of B, what do? What operation? Divide. So use the division property of equality. Cancel that out, and A is equal to C divided by B. And you know what? No other way to write that. I mean, you could do the division symbol, but, that's not. This is really that it. What if I take AB equals C and I wanted to solve it for B instead of A? Then I would what? Divide by A, yeah. It's really that simple. Yeah, I know. There's a few things I need to show you. All right. Those are both one step. Yes, Isa.
Is there an assignment today?
Yes, there is going to be an assignment today. But you know what? I know it's easy, isn't it? I got to show you a few more things, and it's going to be a worksheet, not out of the book today. So yes, so I know everybody's thinking this is so easy. Just let us start already. Let me just show you how this comes in handy. Do you know the DIRT formula? DIRT. Okay, first hour couldn't come up with it. It's distance equals rate times time. The distance that you travel is equal to how fast you're traveling and how long you're traveling at that rate for. Nick. So, what if it's solved for distance. What if I want to solve this for time? Yeah, Dr. T. So, if I want to solve this for time, then I would just divide by the rate. So if you, and how can this come in handy? What if, because here's the deal. If you're given an equation with 3 unknowns, I have to give you the value of 2 of them so you can find the third, right? I can't just give you the value of 1. So what if I know the distance and the rate, but not the time? So you know that you can manipulate this equation, and I will say that again because that's really all you are doing when you are solving a literal equation is just manipulating it and putting it in a different way. Okay, kind of like the Fahrenheit Celsius formula, the transformation of that. Did you do that with Miss Larson? Okay. All right, let's make this a little harder. Let's take this AB plus C equals D. This is where it starts to look a little kooky. All right. Now, I'm going to tell you it's already solved for D. Let's solve it for C, which is the easiest of the two. And I know what you're thinking. Do I literally just, what would you do, Sophia? Yeah, you can just go ahead and divide this by AB, which cancels that out and leaves you with C by itself, which is what I asked for. And your answer is just D over AB. And that's your answer. You know, we're coming off of 4 sections of like our answers were these perfect little numbers, right? 8, -2, 5. We're going to have some crazy looking answers today. So AB plus C equals D. This time let's solve it for A. Now, this brings up a good question. Somebody first hour told me the first thing I should do here is divide by AB. Why not? Because you always want to cancel out the constant, and I know what you're thinking. Well, how do I know which one's the constant? We can assume that this is the constant because it's by itself. But I want you to think about this. If I had 8x plus 4 equals 9, I wouldn't divide by 8x first, right? I would subtract 4 from both sides. So you could tell it's by itself. So let's subtract C from both sides, which is going to leave me with AB over here, so we're one step closer. Again, I did notice, I will tell you to be fair, that the book puts them in alphabetical order. So even though my C is down here, my instinct is to write D minus C. But you will see in the book probably that it's -C plus D. I'll let you make that choice. Sometimes if your answer doesn't match the answer in the back of the book, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, I'm wrong. Isn't there more than one way sometimes to write something? Yeah. But if you aren't able to recognize that, then you may think you got them all wrong when they're really right. So that's one thing I want to stress today. So what do I need to cancel out now? If I want A by itself, I cancel out B. Okay. And that leaves me with either A equals D minus C over B, or A equals -C plus D over B. Do you see? I'm hoping that if you had this answer and you saw that answer, you would say, oh, it's just that switched around. Okay? Now, there is another one that may be a little confusing, so let's talk about it. Let's do A minus BX equals C. And I'm asking you to solve it for X. Okay. So, first thing I do is cancel out the constant. This time, where's the constant? It's the one that's by itself, so subtract A. And you have -BX equals, again, my first instinct would be to just write C minus A, but how does the book have it? Alphabetical order. The A is negative, the C is positive. I would just probably write that. Okay? Yes, ma'am. It is already a positive A, so I want to subtract it. Because if I added A, I would have two A's, which would double it instead of get rid of it. Good question. All right, what needs to go? A negative B. This is where it starts to get a little crazy, because what you're going to see in the book for an answer is positive A minus C over B. Tell me, because I know a lot of you are just thinking that that was probably the answer. But what did they do from here to there? Yes, Amber. Yes, thank you. That's awesome. They canceled out the negative B. So let's look at this for a minute. This is, before we even go any further, I want to kind of explain something here. Have we done these problems? I think we did them last year. If I have like negative 8x plus 4 divided by 2. Okay? 1 second. Sophia, yeah.
Why did you get rid of the negative on the
That's what we're talking about right now. Why did we get rid of this negative? Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what I'm explaining. So watch real quick. Okay, if I had 2 and then a negative 8x plus 4 like that, there would be no doubt in your mind you know what to do, right? Okay, Joseph, eyes up here. You would distribute, right? You would say the negative 8 and the 4 both have to share the 2. And they share it with multiplication, right? So you would multiply each of these by a 2. Well, this is almost identical to distributing, except distributing means multiply. This I call distributing with division. Doesn't that big old fraction bar mean divide? So I'm going to divide each of these by 2, which means I have to take into consideration that a negative 8 divided by a positive 2 gives me a negative 4x. Good? And a positive 4 divided by a positive 2 gives me a positive 2. So what happens when I say 5x minus 10 divided by negative 5? Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
negative 5x plus.
Well, the 5 divided by 5 is going to give us? Yeah. So this positive divided by this negative gives me a negative 1 with x, where we don't really need to write the 1, right? Now watch, that negative and this negative cancel and make a positive. So it's kind of like, where did the negative go? Like Amber said, they divided it into the numerator. So let's go back up real quick and look and see if that makes sense to us now. They divided a negative A by a negative B, and a negative gives you a positive. What does a positive divided by a negative give you? A negative. So if you do it over on this one, that would give you x is equal to a negative c positive a over b. So I know what you're thinking. If you wrote it this way and the answer was this way, you might look at that and think, oh, they just switched around the c minus a to a minus c. No! Subtraction is not commutative, so you can't do that, and that's not what they did. They factored that negative in and divided them each. And what does dividing by negatives do? Change the sign of everything. Do you understand why that is what it is? Okay, I need you to make sure you understand that. Okay, the last example we're going to do is really, really important because you're going to see it a lot coming up in semester or trimester 2. I'm going to start you with 3x plus 2y equals 8. And it's going to say, first of all, you notice that your variables are x's and y's. And there are a few numbers in there, okay? It's going to say, make this function so that y is a function of x. And right now, you may not know what that means. What does that mean? Do I solve it for x or y? Make it so that y is a function of x. That's what you want to solve for, because that's the first one there, and y will be a function of x, which means get y by itself, which means it's going to look like y equals mx plus b, won't it? Yeah. Okay, Jasper. So, I want to get y by itself. What's got to go? The whole 3x. Be careful. What should I do? Divide by it? Minus it. Good. Subtract it. Because what's happening to it? It's not being multiplied by this. I just want to show you. If I had 3x times 2y and I wanted to get rid of the 3x, yeah, I would divide. But it's not. So the opposite of adding is good. Subtracting. So watch. Again, you are faced with the, how do I write it? I personally like it in slope-intercept form, and that means my x is first. So I'm going to write negative 3x plus 8. If you would like to write 2y equals positive 8 minus 3x, you go for it. Okay? Let's finish it off. What do I got to do to get y by itself? Like, turn on. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. Now we got a little bit of fancy stuff to do here. I'm good over here. That's the reason I divided by 2, is to get y by itself. All right? Now, here's the deal. I have to divide a negative 3x and an 8 both by 2. And guess what? It's a bonus when that 2 ends up going into one of them evenly. And when it doesn't, we got to figure out how to write it. So I know I'm going to have a plus 4 at the end, right? Because a positive 8 divided by a positive 2 is a positive 4. Now, 2 does not go evenly into 3. So you know what we do? Careful, don't get lost here. Whoa, that's all we do. We just leave it how it is. We say 3 over 2 is 3 over 2. And for some people, and then we just put the x in the middle. And that means negative 3/2 x. Some people, I know your instinct is to maybe make it a mixed number. Some people even wanted to make it a decimal. And I'm going to tell you not to not do either of them. Why do you think I want to keep that 3 over 2 as a 3 over 2? And it has something to do with this poster right there, right underneath the scatter plot one. Because what is the definition of slope? Rise over run. And guess what? Here's my rise. Here's my run. If you're looking at that, is it obvious that your rise is negative 3 and your run is 2? Especially not there. So keeping it improper was what you'll want to do. Okay? This answer could also be y equals 4 minus 3/2 x. Good? All right. Why don't you try this one right here real quick. X equals 5/8 a. Solve it. Well, the only choice is to solve it for a because it's already solved for x, and this will be the last one we do. Solve that for a. In other words, make the coefficient of a equal to 1. So what are you doing? Multiply it by what? 8/5. Awesome. So 8/5, 8/5, which cancels out the 8s and it cancels out the 5s and it leaves you with a equal to 8/5 x. So it's kind of like the fraction just hopped over here and jumped upside down in the meantime. Questions? All right, so you are getting a purple worksheet today. I guess I should include that. And you're doing both the front and the back, and you're also doing your slide.